Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. So, I was getting a project done for gifting season, and I really didn't want to wait for shipping, so I went on an adventure to my local craft store to see what I could find for end cones. Long story short, jack shit, because they either have silver or gold, or really gross looking antiqued gold, or antiqued finishes, sometimes copper, and since I was giving these to a person, I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go and make it myself. So, that's exactly what I did. And this is what I came up with using herringbone. I've just been really fascinated with using herringbone to make a nice, cuppy thing. End cone, and I also happen to have copper beads that match my copper wire. I'm going to show you how I did this as well, so you can use it on your own projects. Now, you don't necessarily have to use it for ending a bracelet. You can do a fringy tassel-y thing, which I've seen, which is pretty cool. You just have like a bunch of dangly, fringy bits on the bottom, so if you want to do that with a pair of earrings or something, I don't know. I am presenting this knowledge to you. Use it how you will. And I put this on a Viking knit bracelet. I don't know when I'm posting this video, but if I have posted my Viking knit tutorial, I will have a link down below. Stay tuned, because I will have it upcoming soon. So be sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, do all the obligatory things so that you know when I post new shit. So, for this, I just used 2 size 15 seed beads. You can also do this with delicas. You can do this with size 11 seed beads. Do with it with what you want. So, you could even do it with just one color, but I kind of liked how this little tree motif happened. So I did it that way. You don't even have to use it as a tree. You can do this in one color and just omit that one and put copper instead to make it a triangle. I don't know, do what you will. You can use these in 2 different sizes. You can make the branch parts size 11, and you can make this part, the inside triangle bit, still size 15s. You can use delicas here, use rounds here. Just keep in mind, the larger beads that you have in here is the wider it's going to go. So, this is a good way, the way I have it, to replace an 8mm inner diameter tube of some form. So just keep that in mind if I'm using 2 size 15s. It's got a lot of room to play around with. So, I also used a 3mm bicone to add to the other end to kind of close that big hole. And it kind of sits nicely with the accents there. It kind of tucks in there. All pretty like. And, of course, your needle and thread. I'm using just Nymo for this because it's a very tight weave, and you don't really need too much security as it's not really taking weight. But yeah, that's all you need. And with all that being said, let us get started. So, I'm going to start off creating a 6 bead long ladder stitch. And how I started off is I add 2 beads. I'm going to pull that down, leaving about a 3 or 4 inch tail. I'm going to use it to finish off the accents at the top, but I don't need it to be too long. And to start my ladder stitch, I'm going to take the first bead I added, pass back around and through, skipping over the second bead, and I pull tight so that the 2 beads sit next to each other. Going to go down bead number 2, add on 1 more bead. Since my thread is going downward, I'm going to go around and down so that I add bead number 3 to my chain. Now I'm going to set up for my next stitch just by passing up bead 3. I'm going to add bead number 4, and since my thread is going upward, I'm going to pass up and pull through to add bead number 4. Then to finish it off, I'm going to pass down and add as many beads as I need. You're going to add pairs of beads so that we're in sync with the herringbone stitch. I used 6 pairs. If you want a wider or larger bell, you're going to add 2 more. So the next one you're going to add is 8. If you want an even bigger one, add 10. and so forth. So I'm going to add 2 more stitches to make a row of 6. And I have my band of 6 beads like that, and I'm going to join these 2 together to form a ring. My thread is coming down from the last bead, so I'm going to go down, up, the very first bead that we've added, and pull that through. Then to finish the join, I'm going to go backwards through bead number 6 and down so that they pinch together. And I'm going to finish off by passing back through bead number 1 just to have my working thread in the opposite direction of my tail. Now I'm going to start my herringbone stitch. I've got 2 size 15s. I'm going to pass down the next bead over so that it sits on top. I'm going to move and rotate to my next bead, go upwards to set up for my next stitch. Add on 2 beads, go down the next bead, rotate and set up for my next stitch by passing up the next bead. Add on 2 more beads, go down the next bead. Now, since I'm at the last row, I need to step up for 2 beads instead of 1. So I travel through 2 beads to get to the top for the next stitch. When I pull everything together, it starts to form a little bit of a cup. Don't worry too much about the thread tension because it'll fix and adjust later. Now we're going to work on expanding this piece to make it into more of a bell shape. So I'm going to continue on my herringbone stitch. I've got 2 seed beads. I'm going to pass down through the next bead so that I have 3 beads in one column. I'm going to add my color B, size 15, and then pass up through the top row of the next column over so that that bead sits in between. I'm going to add 2 more, color A, pass down through the top bead, next over, to add another herringbone stitch, add on 1 size 15 and pass up through the topmost bead on the next column. Add on 2 more beads, make another stitch, add on 1, color B. Now since I'm at the last row, I need to move up 2 beads. So I go up through the last 2 beads on the last column and finish my row. And we have sort of a cup shape forming. We're going to do the same exact thing, except we're going to increase the number of beads on color B. So I add 2 beads, do my next herringbone stitch. I add 2 color B, go up the next column so that there's 2 on top of each other. Do another herringbone stitch, add 2, herringbone stitch, add 2, then move up 2 on the last column in order to get to the next row. You'll repeat that, adding 3 of these beads and then 4 of these beads in order to make additional 2 rows. So this is how I've started my 2 bead set, and you can see I'm going up 2 in order to step up. Hi. How you doing? Then I do my next herringbone stitch. I add 3, color B, and move up to the top of the next column over. And that's how we do the next row. With the next row, I do my herringbone stitch, go through normally, add 4 beads, then move up to the next column, and continue on. And that is what we end up with. Now the last row is just going to be a little bit different. Instead of adding 2 beads for our normal herringbone stitch, all I'm going to do is add 1, then go down as if I am doing a herringbone. So that I end up with a point in between the 2 beads. Then I add 2A, 1B, 2A, and move up to the next column, so that we have a little tree motif. I add 1 color A and go down as if I'm doing a herringbone, then add my 5 beads and continue in that manner. Then when I'm at my last row, I'm going to step up by going through the last paired column and the bead that I added when I first started this row. And that is what we end up with. Now, you can choose to just keep using 5 color A's instead of an A and a B, and you can also do a little bit of extra flair on this piece. So what we're going to do is move over from this tip bead. We're going to move down a column and through the next 2 size 15s. I'm going to add 1 size 15 and then pass through the next color A's, jumping over the color B. So that sits on top like that. Then I'm going to rotate, continue on, and move to the next color B. Add 1 color A and move through. Do so for the last one. And then, if you find that this color A is kind of flopping around and not moving in a direction you like, you can reinforce it by passing through those beads once more. Then once you've done that, you can end this thread and re-thread the needle onto the tail end. Alright, so working from the other end of the cap, my thread is coming out of a single bead on the very tip. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing we did on the tips here. I'm going to add 1 color A and pass down the next seed bead. Go up as if I'm doing a herringbone. Add 1 more color A. Go down the very next seed bead to wedge that in between. Up 1, add 1, then go down the next one. And I'm going down a few more beads because from here I can end my tail using half-hitch knots in between the areas where we've expanded the cap. And after you've finished ending your threads, you will have your completed cap. I'm going to thread it on the other end of my work here, sandwich it on top of this knit, thread on my accent bead or my 3mm bicone, let it sit. You can see how it nicely sits in between those single beads, and then I'm ready to end my wire with a wrapped loop. And there is my finished bracelet. And I think that will do it for this Lessons with Odin. I hope this technique will help you out. I know I've seen a lot of these herringbone techniques, and I really just like how the herringbone stitch just kind of works together and just kind of molds where you want it to go. So I hope you take this technique and run with it and do something really cool and fantastical and finish off your own pieces. If you do so, please be sure to show me pictures. You can post them over at our Facebook group at Creations from Lessons with Odin. You'll find a link to that down below, or just search that. And I think that will do it for me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and be sure to like up this video and subscribe if you want to see more bullshit from me. Follow me around all over the internet. All of my social media links and more examples and images of my jewelry work is down below. And I want to thank you to all of my Patreon supporters who have contributed this month. I greatly appreciate your support. It helps me bring more content and better designs for you. If you're interested in becoming a patron, feel free to check out my Patreon page. My link is all down below. Thank y'all so much for joining me, and of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below, and I will see you next time.